Okay, welcome back to part 2 of factoring. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to give you beginning steps of factoring. This is really important here. You need to get all these things down, so if you have to hit pause to get through, get everything down, please do, because this is a hard chapter and this is the base. This is the beginning of it. Okay, the first thing, these are the beginning steps. Okay, what I'm going to do here is give you step by step, and then we'll do some examples after this. The first thing you have to do is you have to determine what is the greatest common factor of every term in that polynomial. Okay, that's what we did in the at the end of the previous video when we would figure out the greatest common factor with terms that had like x squared. Okay, so you've got to determine what is the GCF. All right, the greatest common factor of all the terms in the polynomial. All right, that's step 1. Step 2, after you've done that, you have to then divide out that term from the polynomial. So you find the GCF in step 1. All right, you find that GCF and then you have to divide that thing out. Okay, that's the second thing you'll do. The third thing that you're going to do, then you rewrite the greatest common factor in front because you've divided it out. Okay, it's going to be multiplied back later, and that'll make sense when we look at an example in a little bit. You rewrite the greatest common factor in the front, and then you rewrite the resulting polynomial in the parentheses, and that would give you the factored form of that particular polynomial. Okay, so those steps will get that get the answer for you, and then the last thing you should do, at least mentally, you'd be silly not to, because it's so easy to check your answer when we do this. If you distribute that greatest common factor back into the polynomial, you'll have the original answer you started with, and that's just the distributive property. Okay, so make sure you have all those down, and let's look at an example. This is example 1, 8x squared minus 12x. The directions would just simply say factor. All right, now you don't have to rewrite this down. That should already be in your notes. I just put it on here so I could refer to it. The directions would simply say factor. Factor the following: 8x squared minus 12x. Okay, so the first thing that it says to do, it says determine the greatest common factor of each term. Okay, so off to the side, let's just write this GCF. Let's just identify what the greatest common factor is. The terms are 8x squared and 12x. Okay, the GCF of 8x squared and 12x. Okay, 4 is the biggest number that goes into both of them, and we have x and x squared. So remember that trick, you just take the smallest variable. So it's 4x. All right, that's step 1 right there. Now step 2 is we're going to divide it out. Now here's how you do that. You write it down like this. We're going to divide. That's a fraction, right? We're going to divide out the GCF. That's 4x. So just for the notes, I'll write that is the GCF. And then, so we're going to do that here in just a second, but we're going to rewrite the greatest common factor in the front. So we're going to go down to another line and we're going to write 4x and then put parentheses. So this is always the GCF because we're dividing that out, and we divide it out right here. We go 8 divided by 4. 8 divided by 4 is 2, and then you have to do x squared divided by x. X squared divided by x would just be x. So what you've done is you've divided out the 4x and you rewrote it right there. You bring down this sign, it's still a minus, and then we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to divide out 12x divided by 4x. So both of these terms are getting divided out by 4x. We're dividing out, we're simplifying it. 12 divided by 4 is 3, and x divided by x is just 1. So this is my answer right here. 4x times 2x minus 3. That is factored form. Just like on that first page when I did the little tree and I went down, I said, 8 is 4 times 2 or whatever the numbers were. What you've done is you've rewritten this simplified polynomial into a multiplied form right there. Now I also said you would be silly to not check it. Let me just show you how you check it. If the answer is correct, that it's 4x times 2x minus 3. If that's correct, if I multiply this back, 4 times 2 is 8, x times x is x squared, minus 4x, I'm just doing the distributive property, 4 times 3 is 12, x right there, and that matches what I started with. That is how you check it, and it's so easy to do. Like I said, you'd be silly to not take advantage of that opportunity. Okay, so that's a simple one. Let's go on to, let's do a couple more here before we go. Example 2, let's call that this, so copy that down please. The directions are simply factor. And the first thing we're going to do is figure out what is the GCF of those three terms. So you've got 6x squared, you got 12x squared, 6x cubed, 12x squared, 24x. The largest number that goes into all three of those is 6. And the largest variable in common is just x. Okay, so that's step 1. We've determined the GCF is x. We're 6x. We're going to now divide 6x, all the terms, by 6x. And for the next line, for the answer, that 6x is going to be out front. Now what we have to do is we have to divide this by 6x. A highlighter might make sense to you here. I'm going to divide 6x cubed divided by 6x. Okay, 6 divided by 6 is 1. X cubed divided by x would be x squared. So I'm just going to say x squared. Okay. And that giggling that you might have heard in the background was my son Eli, who's watching Minecraft videos on the iPad while I do this. So if you heard that, just ignore it. We will keep going right here. Here we have 12x squared divided by 6. 12 divided by 6 is 2. And x squared divided by x is just x. Right? I just divided this right here. That's what I just did to get 2x squared, 2x. And now we have to divide 24 divided by 6. 24 divided by 6 is, I'm sorry, I can't divide because my son is making me laugh here because he is loving the video he's watching. 6 divided by 24 divided by 6 is 4. X divided by x is 1. So that is my answer right here. And we would check that answer by multiplying it back. I'm not going to write it down, but 6x times x squared is 6x cubed. 6 times 2 is 12. X times x is x squared. And 6x times 4 is 24x. And the signs just match right there. Okay, so again, this is the factored form. All right, and this is only one of many steps to factoring where there's going to be times come where we can actually factor that farther down, which you'll see that later. But let's do a couple more here. I think we've got time to maybe squeeze in 2 more examples. Why don't you try hitting pause here and see if you can work one out yourself, and then I'll just come back with the answer for you in just a moment. So hit pause now and see if you can do it. I'll be right back. Okay, if you are back, you can see I just had the shade come up, and I'm going to reveal the answer now. I've already got it worked out. Hopefully you gave it a shot. First thing you should have done was figure out that the greatest common factor is 3y. So there it is. I'm dividing it out. Didn't draw a very good line on my screen, but hopefully you did. Divide every term now by 3y. You're going to take this term divided by 3y, this term, and this term, all divided by 3y, and you put the greatest common factor out front. So there it is. That's the answer right there. 3y times the quantity, 3y squared minus 2y plus 4. I went ahead and checked it right there, which is a pretty smart thing to do. You should have done that before you came back. 3 times 3 is 9. You got y times y squared, 9y squared, and you can see that that matches the question that I started with. So you got your factored form there, your simplified form at the beginning. All right, last one. That's example 3, by the way. I forgot to write that right there. Example. I just wrote example. It's example 3. Got one more, example 4. Try that again. The answer is under the slide. Why don't you hit pause and come right back and see if you can get it. Okay, if you are back, here we go. You might have noticed something a little different happen. Not a big deal. Greatest common factor is 2t squared. Well, that's okay. I've got that 2t squared right there. We're just going to do the same thing we've been doing. You put the 2t squared up front. When you divide that out, that's just 1. That's all that is right there, just 1. Minus, bring the minus down, 10 divided by 2 is 5, and t to the 4th divided by t squared is t squared. There you have it. So this is the beginning of factoring for us. It gets harder than this. Hopefully this is not too bad for you. But get those notes down, think about it, bring your questions back to class, and I'll see you next time.